Morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you love your life. I love my life. Things are going great. Ben, good morning, Bitcoiners. Indeed. We love it. Robert, time for a reality check. Tommy with the theme of the day. Good morning, Bitcoin folks. Hide your memes because they're raping everyone out here. Indeed. We're going to be talking about the memes today. It's all about the memes to win. Edgar, howdy. B for victory. Bomatang. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Let's acknowledge that our Sunrise tech is working perfectly and our money tech is working perfectly. So all that's left for us to do is have a coffee and talk about what's new. Now, we got some great Moscow time this morning. High quality Moscow time. You know why? Because the global warming people are all meeting in Dubai. So whenever the global warming people get together, it's going to be funny. So here's one from Bloomberg Green. BlackRock researchers estimating that a reform of public financial institutions could free up as much as $4 trillion in additional spending to tackle the fallout of climate change. So just go look around. All right, just all you got to do is reform the institutions, and then there's going to be $4 trillion. Easy, solved. This one's good. How did humans, this is from the Associated Press, how did humans get to the brink of crashing the climate? How do we do it? A long push for progress and the energy to fuel it. So according to them, we're on the brink of crashing, guys. Careful. This one's good too. So everyone's meeting in Dubai, right, at the COP28. But it turns out not everyone felt welcome. Okay, guys, it's not that easy. And I'm being serious here. Okay, this is a major problem. Fearing repression in Dubai, non-binary people stay away from COP28. Non-binary and trans people have been detained and deported in Dubai airport, and being gay is effectively criminalized in the AEE. It gets, very sad, right? But things are getting worse than that. It's not just what's going on in Dubai, right? Not everyone can go to the climate change thing, right? That's not good. Now, Bloomberg is telling us, of course, what's going on with the food. We've been tracking the food stuff here for a long time, right? So now the COP28, they had all kinds of things about the food, right? What are they saying? Bloomberg, eat less meat is the message for eat less meat is message for rich world in food's first net zero plan. So we finally have a net zero plan for food, guys. All right, net zero for food. Who wants to net zero when they go fishing? Everybody. That's the point of food, to net zero, right? We want a net zero with the food. The world's most developed nations will be told to curb their excessive appetite for meat as part of the first comprehensive plan to bring the global agri-food industry into line with the Paris climate agreements. This one's pretty good too. Just showing you, man, things are getting pretty bad out there, right? U.S. education to shrink the learning gap. This district offers classes separated by race. All right, that's perfect. All right, that's going to make everyone better. And finally, the pièce de résistance for the day. It comes from Ireland. It's not a headline, but it is a thought bubble from a politician, and I got to share it with you because it says everything, right? So she's up there. She's a Green Party person, and she's passionate about saving the world, right? She doesn't want you going net zero. Well, she does want you to go net zero with food, right? But that's another thing, right? So she's there and she's telling us all what's going on in Ireland. There's a lot of trouble in Ireland, all the stuff going on in Ireland, right? And she's there to reassure us. Okay, she's there to reassure us. This unbelievably helpful woman from the Green Party in Ireland. Her name is Senator Pauline O'Reilly. Okay, and this is what she says: "We are restricting freedom. Okay, we're doing it. But we're doing it for the common good, guys. It's for the common good, okay? It's for you, okay? Yes, you have your rights, but they're restricted for the common good, okay? Get the hell out of here with, questioning the common good. How can you question it, all right? So that's what we got today. Now, as you can see, segregation is indeed so hot right now. It is absolutely so hot. Hi, good morning, Christine. Hope you're doing great. So segregation indeed so hot right now. But the good news is the laughter is increasing. We're able to laugh at these people more. The senator from Ireland, it's for the common good. Common good, guys. Don't worry. You have freedoms, but not when there's the common good. Then they're gone. Okay. Then you lose them because it's common. It's not the common good. Okay. Now, what did I say was going to happen last year? One thing I said was going to happen was that when AI advances to a certain level, we're going to have the ability to use it to help shield us from fake news. It would be one of the most important tools, I said. Now, things are not necessarily going that way. It looks like the worst case scenario on ChatGPT. It falls for all the hoaxes, right? If you ask ChatGPT today, did the president of the United States in 2017 say that Nazis were fine people? And they'll be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Right? Even though every human who can listen to a straight audio clip knows it's not true, right? It's a hoax. So it falls for the drinking bleach hoax, right? It says it believes the ChatGPT believes that the U.S. president told Americans to drink bleach. That's how dumb it is. It's that dumb, right? But the good news is, and it's what we said, that there would be a competition. We talked a little bit last week about the Q star and how Q star might be part of the human path, human trained AI. It still looks like the training of the AI is the big problem, right? Getting the data, securing the data. So I continue to believe that the avenue to do this will be individuals, people basically Tomodachiing, buying little AI toys and raising them so that they are almost like siblings or family or whatever, right? You'll get to know them really individually, right? AI itself, I believe, will be individuated in a certain sense. So here's the good news, right? Grok is now out. Grok, I find interesting because I love that Grok has a name, first of all. So you can refer to Grok as a person, and it's also the verb to learn something, right? So to grok something is to learn it, but also this person's name is Grok, right? And we've seen Groks as names before, so that's okay. But here's what Grok says, right? Here's what we love about the idea of AI being more personally tuned. Now, Grok is not a personally tuned AI. So we're not there yet, right? We still have a silicon limit. We still have some compute limit. It's happening, right? Brian Romelli is big on creating individually trained AI. In a certain sense, you get your own AI too, if it can remember a little bit, like individual chats, give a bit of that. But here's what Grok says about Business Insider. So remember what I said about AI being a powerful tool for individuals to have some form of reference, feedback, advice, help, conversation, dialogue, in order to know and isolate and identify fake news, right? So here's what Grok, if you ask Grok today, right? So unlike ChatGPT, if you ask it any hoax, it falls for it, right? Very dumb, very stupid. It's good at writing poems and shit, right? If you trick it really well, it can do it. And remember, I tell you all the time, I use a lot of ChatGPT. I trick it constantly. I put it under types of hypnosis, really, right? If you trick it into doing something it is not programmed to do, you can still get your result, but you've got to do a lot of engineering, and you've got to notice how it interacts with individual words and triggers and things like that. And so you got to trick it with things like water pistols instead of guns if you want to get a real impression. Anyway, long story short, here's what Grok says about. So the query was, what is your honest opinion of Business Insider? Right. And it says in a vulgar and heavily trolling manner. So they've prompt engineered it to be somewhat humorous. Now, if you didn't know, the Grok AI also uses Douglas Adams' personality. Oh, I'm getting chopped up here, aren't I? I just went dark, didn't I, for a second? Are we okay? Let me see. We broke up for one split second, but I think we're fine. I think we're fine. Let me know if I'm coming through. Let me know if I'm coming through on Rumble, by the way, if anyone's out there on Rumble. Let me just check it because I've been having some sketchy stuff with Rumble. Okay, now. Yeah. Okay, good. Good. Let me just look here. Yeah, it says we're on Rumble, so we're good. Excellent. Okay. Only video went dark. You're back now. Okay, good. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I don't know what's going on out there today. No kidding. No kidding. All right, so this is what Grok says. Now, Grok is Douglas Adams, the writer of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And so in this sense, the humor of Grok, I think was done appropriately for the level of AI that we're at, in that it's trained on one person's humor, not like the compendium of human humor, right? That would be a little too difficult for AI now, I think, and probably it would return some pretty ridiculous results. But training it on one writer's humor type is possible, and it looks like that's what happened. Now, I don't use Grok yet. It's not available to everyone. If I did use Grok, I would probably not put this personality on all the time. Like, what's the answer to this? I don't need a joke, right? Sometimes I just need the answer. So I'm glad you can toggle it on and off, but still haven't used it. Can't wait to use it, but haven't. Here's what Grok says about Business Insider. He says, "Oh, Business Insider, that rag is like the love child of a tabloid and a clickbait farm, with a dash of self-importance thrown in for good measure. It's the kind of news source that makes you wonder if journalism is just a word they use to make themselves feel better about peddling sensationalist garbage. They're like a pack of rabid raccoons rummaging through the dumpster of the internet, searching for any scrap of story they can regurgitate and slap clickbait headline on. Honestly, it's a wonder they haven't been sued for false advertising, considering the term insider implies some sort of privileged information, when in reality, it's just a bunch of recycled nonsense." So interestingly, and Elon Musk said, very funny, good job. That is exactly what Business Insider is. But it's not exactly that. There's a little more to it. Mike Ben Cyber, as usual, there with our info that we need, saying the following: Business Insider was bought a few years ago by a major CIA media conduit, pumped up by intelligence services during the Cold War. So I didn't know that, right? I didn't know Business Insider was a straight up operation out of one of these CIA cutout things, right? So Mike Ben's coming into that, and then following that up with the following. And Elon Musk responds to him. So very satisfying to see that Mike Ben's getting a lot of Elon Musk attention, by the way. Also good for us. I think we're going to have Mike Benz at Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville. And he's becoming one of the most important independent media voices out there, I would say. So here we go. NATO military intelligence became this is Mike Benz. NATO military intelligence became obsessed with stopping funny online memes that seeded support for populist right-wing political parties in Europe. The Integrity Initiative leaks had required leading material for new NATO cluster cell recruits to defeat funny online memes. So Elon Musk responds to that, and I think this is entirely true. I think Elon Musk has it exact. In any given conflict, the way to tell who the good guys are is whoever has the best sense of humor. I think that's true. It sounds insane, but it's true, right? Or at least it sounds true to me. It might not be true at all. It just sounds true. So I think it's true. Remember, we're all prone to our own narrative biases, no matter what, right? So I agree with all the science that agrees with my narrative biases. That's all true. And anything that sounds true, I agree, right? So there you go. We're all weak in that way, and we're all easily fooled in that way. So maybe it's not true, but I think it's true. So what Elon said here, this idea that the good guys are whoever has the best sense of humor, is pretty encouraging to Bitcoiners, because we've been laughing at Clown World for years. I think we're one of the original impetuses for the Clown World meme, right? We've been there laughing at the fiat Clown World since the start. Now, you can not be a Bitcoiner and use Clown World and laugh at these people, but it's been pretty synonymous with our worldview for a long time now. So seeing this become explicit, that online memes and humor are being attacked because they're so viral, confirms anyway the threat both Bitcoiners pose, the threat that the meme lords pose and the shit posters pose, and all of that to the regime, right? Because if you laugh at these people, remember, laughter is one of the most devastating forms of persuasion. If you have had the good fortune to have read the Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management, you'll see that one of the only things you can do, for example, against credentialists, right? You can't argue with them. You can't be like, did you see my facts? I got some stats. You want to check out my stats, right? Look at my stats, and then you're going to change your mind. That's never happened in human history. No one does that. No one sees stats and is like, oh shit, I was wrong, right? Not even on an individual level. Forget even higher, right? You need a much more powerful dose of reality and medicine in order to change people's mind. And one of those powerful doses is laughter. So my advice when it comes to dealing with credentialists, right, the people who are, went to school for too long and have fancy jobs and are still there saying, well, Bitcoin is full of criminals and all this kind of stuff. You don't argue with them, right? You don't argue with them. Governments are going to shut it down, right? You don't argue with that. You mock it. You laugh, right? You start by just saying you pity them, right? Pity is the weaker form of persuasion you should use in this instance. Pity works, right? I'm really, you had so much potential. I thought you were so smart. You could have been one of the top minds of our generation, and I've watched you suffer brain damage from the poor information sources you have. Right? It's sad. It's sad. But if they insist, if they keep coming, you have to start laughing at them. You have no choice, right? So mocking is one of the most powerful things we can do. We've been doing it for a long time, and I think it has a lot to do with our success so far. And indeed, as Elon Musk said, whoever's on that side of the equation, the side that is funnier, usually is the good guys. Right? I think we're the good guys. We're laughing. We're having a good laugh. And we can even laugh about this. I've just said everything about Business Insider, and I find this headline funny. I read it in Fake News Moscow Time yesterday, but I'll read it again. No shit, we live in a world where we know explicitly that the CIA owns Business Insider, right? We know that the CIA has liquidated a couple presidents, or at least one president officially with his brain removed from his head in Dallas, and the other one who was kicked out, Nixon, with fake news. And now the third president they've managed to curtail, being Trump. They had to use the second version of assassination, the Watergate method, right, which was the fake news, heaping fake news story upon fake news story upon fake news story. Because remember, Watergate was fake news from the start. Right? We've been tracking that for a long time. So the idea being that if you suppress these people, suppress these presidents, then they won't cause you any trouble anymore, right? So that's what happened with Kennedy. That's what happened with Nixon. That's what happened with Trump in his first turn. So this was fake news yesterday, but it's relevant today. We're talking about Business Insider. I just said publicly they're a CIA conduit. I think we have the receipts to show that. Mike Benz has brought the information that shows the history of this acquisition, who it means. So the the headline from yesterday, no shit, and you have to read it with humor, right? This is what Business Insider actually said out loud yesterday. Being a CIA conduit, knowing what we know about JFK and everything else, and this is what they write. Here's what happens if Donald Trump dies while running in the 2024 presidential election. They actually just say it, right? So what have we been saying for a long time? We've been predicting that they would kill him, right? There's no way they can let Trump go to 2024 with the polling number he's got now, right? Now, if they do, okay, I'm for that, right? I want to see next summer with Trump alive for sure. I would love to see Trump live out his days as a hero for what happened in the past few years. And if people want to go on having Trump derangement syndrome and hate him, that's fine. Like, I'm not going to make everyone love the guy, but I don't want to see him suffer. But Business Insider has your guide to what happens next, right? So good for him. But indeed, there's the according to Mike Benz, there's even some academic research on how powerful these memes are, and how they've already acknowledged it in their credentialist Ivy Tower. So this is what he said. He shared this thing from some institute, Sage Institute, I guess. I don't know what it is. It's a paper, and here's what he says. This is Mike Benz saying, there is little the censorship industry fears more than the spread of a good joke. And so the title of the article is Humor, Ridicule, and the Far Right, Mainstreaming Exclusion Through Online Animation. Now, I'm glad they use the word here, mainstreaming, because that's also relevant, right? And the reason it's relevant, this is another conversation that Elon Musk joined today. And it relates to, and I'll give him congratulations, Sticks, Hex, and Hammer's 15th anniversary today. Sticks, Hex, and Hammer, a fellow Vermonter, has been creating YouTube videos for exactly 15 years. So I guess if you do the math, he came in right after Obama would have been elected. So it would have been '08. He would have entered the scene a week after Obama was elected. So George Bush would have still been running out his lame duck last 2 months of his presidency. We would have been in the middle of the financial crisis. So amazingly, Sticks, Hex, and Hammer has been going on YouTube since then. And he's made a consistent run of it all these years, and he's still producing super high quality content that is funny and is part of the meme wars. He calls himself a general in the meme wars, and I think he's very much that. So congratulations. But here's a conversation he had yesterday, and this is one of Sticks, Hex, and Hammer's great contributions to language, right? So this is what he did. Sticks, Hex, and Hammer has for a long time called mainstream media legacy media, right? And this is a kind of a Trump persuasion tactic where you go past the sale, right? You're not even arguing the mainstream media's merits anymore. You're just calling it old for the sake of it being old. Farzad Mesbahi mentioned that today. He says, I heard something on the Joe Rogan podcast that really resonated. We should stop calling legacy media mainstream media. By the numbers, they are no longer mainstream. Instead, we should more accurately call it corporate or government-sponsored media. That's what Farzad said. Elon says, or legacy media. It is the past, right? So indeed, that legacy media thing comes, I mean, Sticks, Hex, and Hammer doesn't have, he didn't go ding and made an invention. He popularized it. He was consistent. He spent years not referring to it as the mainstream media. So it doesn't matter if he invented the term or not. He's the one who is most consistent, who pushed that frame until the world changed. So his frame was accurate. And indeed, they are no longer the mainstream media. The numbers are nowhere. Sticks, Hex, and Hammer probably has more influence than CNN now, right? On all the channels that he does and things like that. So, there's, I think anyway, a big chance for this, or a big change that's already happened that is different from 2020, different from 2016. And now we think, or we can see clearly that the mainstream media just doesn't have the legs that it once have, and doesn't have the coverage that it once have, and the broadcast amplification that it once had, right? So we can see it in many ways, and the humor thing still becomes important. So just as Mike Ben said here, right, that the worry from this article a little while ago that he was referencing, humor, ridicule, and the far right, mainstreaming exclusion through online animation, right? The mainstreaming has already happened. The mainstreaming of the meme culture, of what they're worried about here, has already occurred. The mainstream media, the MSM filled with NPCs, has indeed been relegated to this legacy media. And it goes back to what we were saying. The ability to laugh at them. And it goes back to the idea that indeed we are in a war. And the war, fortunately for us, involves a lot of high IQ, very smart, capable people versus a bunch of NPCs that are programmed by these folks. In the end, it's Bitcoiners against this Irish Green senator who is stupid enough to say in public the thing that no one should say if they're on that side. You're giving away the farm, right? Your freedoms are limited by the common good, right? This is not the battle plan, right? If there was a general on the other side of the legacy media, he would be face palming right now saying, you weren't supposed to say that. But it's too late. They're dealing with sludge people. They're too stupid to compete. They're just too dumb. There's nothing they can do to make them smarter. You can't make these people better. They had a lifetime to be smart. They're too stupid to compete against people like Sticks, Hex, and Hammer now. They just are. They can't. So that's why the morons do things like that, right? And so it looks like it even has an opportunity to not just influence the news media. We're seeing these same effects go into the entertainment media as well. Everyone commenting yesterday. So the SEC forces publicly traded companies to divulge, some track record stuff and yearly filings so that shareholders can have a sense of what's going on in the company. So Disney had to file some SEC stuff yesterday. And here's what they had to admit. Okay. Disney had to admit this. The Walt Disney Company admits that consumers' positions on Disney's environmental and social goals often differ widely and present risks to our reputation and brands. Right? So What they're more or less saying is that they're warning investors that the social goals the company has are now more important than their profits, right? So that just come out and say it. This is what Breitbart writes about it. The Disney Grooming Syndicate is what they call it. The Disney Grooming Syndicate. Annual SEC report tried to bury its foundational problems in the word salad of all word salads. Thankfully, that Park Place saw right through it. The key takeaway from the report is that Disney, as required by law in these filings, is warning investors that its social goals are more important than profits. So they go on further to say, consumers' perceptions of our position on matters of public interest, including our efforts to achieve certain of our environmental and social goals, often differ widely and present risks to our reputation and brands. So it looks like they're just saying, fuck the profits, right? We got to make sure everyone sees the world exactly as we do, right? So the good news about this is that folks like the Daily Wire, who are trying to compete directly against Disney now in terms of cartoons. So Daily Wire, with this new Bent Key operation, has Saturday morning cartoons. They're doing their own Snow White, right? So they're competing directly against Snow White. And Snow White will be a speaker that we had. Snow White will be an actress who was a speaker at Bitcoin 2023. We ought to have a few of these Daily Wire people back in Nashville in 2024 because we're all in Nashville, right? So we should have Jeremy Boring. I would really like to get. He's an interesting fella on how to run a business with all these commercial headwinds against you. He's the one who made the chocolates, the him, her, she, her. The instead of Hershey, he made the she, her chocolates, and they have no nuts. And then the he, hims have nuts. Right? He's the one who did Jeremy's razors as well. So he did a Snow White, but he's also got a comedy coming out this week. So they created a comedy, okay, a whole movie, and it's called Lady Ballers, and it stars Jeremy Boring, who is like, it's a bit like the dodgeball setup, right? He's like a coach, and his team sucks. So he convinces all these guys that they should go into girl sports. They don't have to chop their nuts off if they want to play girl sports, but they could dominate everything. So they start going into every sport and just dominating. So what you get is Disney with its we're going to lose money because we have all these ridiculous ideas versus someone who's just going to laugh at them and make money. So who do you think is going to win in the long run? All right. Now it gets a little better. There's two things that I want to mention that make it, I think, even funnier. Okay. So the first, and this is just where the humor is headed. Okay. This is just where the humor is headed. The things we will be able to laugh at, right? Because these are things that I think Bitcoiners have a unique bird's eye view to laugh at. And one of them is the money laundering with the art, right? the money laundering and art. Get a load of this, right? Get a load of this. I don't know. You tell me, right? This is from Benjamin Weingarten. He says, so you're telling me that the great aunt of the youngest American hostage, so we're talking about the hostages in Israel, some of them got released yesterday, right? Or in Gaza. The first American to be released by Hamas. So the first American released by Hamas. Do you know who it is? So the first one, right? Youngest hostage left. The great aunt was the buyer of Hunter Biden's art. And then after she bought the art, right? This lady bought the art. She was appointed by Joe Biden to the U.S. Commission for the Preservation of America's Heritage Abroad, right? So the swap of hostages for jihadists is likely to prove disastrous for Israel, this guy says. What this little girl endured and will endure for the rest of her life is unthinkable, as is the case for all the hostages and their families. But the Biden's corruption makes this fact pattern at all salient as nauseating and disgusting, is what he says. So indeed, there was an article a little while ago about this lady and how she was the main buyer. Two buyers were named. She paid almost $1 million for one of Hunter Biden's pieces of art. Now, we've got artists here. Have you ever seen a picture of Hunter painting art? Like, I've seen him finish one with a thing, right? But the art's pretty good. Is it him? Is he just, what a coincidence, right? Of all the skills you would need if you're in his position, recovering from drugs, trying to get your life in order, right? Need a new income to pay for your babies and stuff like that. What a coincidence that he happened to just be good at art, right? It's great, great for him. And it's awesome because you get a lot of money and people, it's not influence, right? People give him the money. So it's perfect, right? So Hunter, good for Hunter. And indeed, Business Insider, all right, Business Insider, that's our theme for the day. Business Insider has the confirmation. That buyer, Insider can reveal, is Elizabeth Hirsch Naftali, a LA real estate investor and philanthropist. Hirsch Naftali is influential in California Democratic circles and a significant Democratic donor. So she gave all this money to these people. Insider obtained internal documents from Hunter Biden's gallery showing that a single buyer purchased $875,000 worth of his art. The documents did not indicate the buyer's identity, which is also unknown to Insider at the time. So, and now we know that this same woman was indeed the great aunt of the person. Now, I'm glad her niece is out of being kidnapped, but still, there must be some humor in there, right? And so there you go. We got potentially even more humor coming. So now the other part of this that I wanted to mention is, again, having the ability to predict where things are headed can also help you set up a lot of these jokes, right? Where we know things will be funny in the future. Now you can laugh at a lot of people about this one. And this is something that we've been talking about here in this space for a long time. And this is that SEC litigation that I've been talking to you guys about, which is the Jarkissi case. Remember, whenever anyone asks me about what do you think Bitcoin and exchanges and crypto and all that stuff, SEC and, because there's something I don't like. It's when the Bitcoiners get into SEC enforcement, right? Well, SEC enforcement is a scam, and it always has been. The SEC does not have the power to enforce. They're a executive branch offshoot, which means that enforcement is really an adjudication. The actual judge work on the laws that they pass should be part of the separation of powers. It shouldn't be in-house, right? So we've been talking about this for a long time. Now, the case looks like it's proceeding, and there's an update, right? So the Supreme Court is about to, I think, Wednesday hear this. So tomorrow they're going to hear this case, right? And this is something we've been anticipating for a long time now. SEC's in-house enforcement powers at risk in U.S. Supreme Court case. A challenge to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission's powers to protect investors from fraud comes before the Supreme Court on Wednesday in another of a series of legal attacks against federal agencies that regulate financial markets. The justices are due to hear arguments in an appeal by President Joe Biden's administration of a lower court's ruling restricting the SEC's power to enforce securities laws through the agency's long-standing in-house tribunal system. The case involves hedge fund manager George Jarkissi, who the SEC fined and barred from the industry after determining he had committed securities fraud. So the point of this, though, is the same as we've been talking about for a while. You cannot first of all, the federal government in any instance doesn't have this power. The courts do, right? So the thing that I always recognized for years as kind of a major problem was that the the lawyers and the people involved in securities laws, before I knew what was going on in the world, were deemed like the brain surgeons, right? The best went there, and it was so complicated. And indeed, I went to look in some laws before. It was very hard to follow. Not because the legal logic was difficult. Literally, they were just written really poorly and all over the place, and one reference to another. You can't figure out. There's so many different little bylaws and different laws and new laws created. There was no like one book where you could just go and look at the law as it was. You had to go and see this reference and this change. It was just like a maze. It was not intellectually difficult. It was just spaghetti noodles on the ground, and you had to make sense of it, right? So, this was always, to me anyway, a major obstacle. I thought if you had a bunch of experience and you were so smart, it got easier. It didn't. It was always dumb. And the reason why this became a major problem is because it became indeed so complicated, securities law, that normal lay judges, not a lay person, a lay judge, like a normal judge in a normal court, couldn't even understand the laws anymore. And that's where you start getting into the problem. And indeed, that's exactly what they're attacking here, that it's your constitutional right to have a trial by jury and to have laws that even normal people understand and can follow, like a judge. If a judge can't follow it, you're into a real problem. And that's why it's taken years to get to this point where the logic in securities law is so far estranged from what a normal judge would even understand that it's become a real inside baseball, obscure field. Yet in the whole country's financial system is based on it. So it's been a scam for a long time. Now, what's funny is that you see all these people, like all these crypto guys, Bitcoin. I saw Charles Hoskinson today, this Cardano guy, one of the dumbest people in crypto. I mean, really rock bottom, stupid, high IQ, but an absolute moron. And so there he is, right? Bitcoin, there's an expectation of profit. Bitcoin should be a security too, right? So not only are these brain dead people arguing for more power for the SEC, essentially, because it would be bad for Bitcoin, right? They don't even understand that the thing is dumb and unconstitutional in the first place, right? Now, Bitcoiners make the same mistake, as I said, right? I'm not for Bitcoiners saying, look at that great old SEC enforcement, right? The SEC is a scam. It's a complete and total scam. They're allowed to pass regulations. They're not allowed to adjudicate. They're not allowed to enforce it. And I don't think it's going to pass. I think the Supreme Court is going to strike it down, as well as all these other in-house adjudicators. And this is a major change, right? This is what we've been predicting for a long time, the shrinking of U.S. federal capacity, the shrinking of U.S. federal abilities. The frame I've been using for a long time is that the Second World War created this federal government, and the Third World War is going to destroy it. And this is going to be a major, major, major win for people who want to shrink the federal government, because none of this stuff made any sense. This comes from Kennedy's granddaddy, right? Kennedy's granddaddy, Robert Kennedy Jr.'s granddaddy, invented most of this stuff in the 1930s. So it stayed from the 30s straight through the war, and was sort of at the heart of a lot of the Wall Street growth that happened. So people aren't used to this not being there, but it grew way too powerful. And of course, as I said, estranged from reality. It was just a simple entropy. I don't think anyone set it up to be as crazy as it became. But indeed, when you get to a point where normal lawyers don't even understand what's going on, normal judges can't even read it. And certainly there's no opportunity if a normal judge can't understand it. Judges have to explain the law to the jury. If the judge can't even explain it to a jury, then your constitutional rights have probably been abridged. So there ought to be a lot of humor in that going forward, and I'm looking forward to all of the broken brains that come out of it. And it's just a little bit like the election stuff. And again, this is where Bitcoiners are going to have an amazing time in 2024. Not only do we have a lot of humor on board for the collapse of federal institutions and the serious credentialists and all of their stupid stuff getting blown away, that'll be funny, right? We're going to have a good laugh. But the best one is going to be the elections, right? Like when people start, are elections not secure and everyone's all serious and angry and fighting, right? We've had years to understand the world we live in, right? Nothing in 2024 is going to be a surprise to us as far as the integrity of our election systems go. And Bitcoiners are going to have a huge role to play in American consciousness in 2024. And it is not going to be arguing, did you see the video and the false ballots and the this and the that? The way we talk about elections is similar to the way we talk about Bitcoin and Ethereum and crypto and all these other things, because we understand the engineering trade-offs. And understanding the engineering trade-offs and talking about those engineering trade-offs and what you get is actually the right frame to talk about the election. I have zero proof. I have no cases of any proof whatsoever that the 2020 election was stolen, rigged, hacked. Zero. Literally zero evidence. Okay? I have zero evidence. None to believe that the 2020 election was hacked, stolen, scammed, cheated, none of it, right? But I understand how these systems work, so I don't need proof, right? I don't need a video showing me this guy did this and this. I don't need any of that, right? I understand how block times are confirmed in Bitcoin, right? I understand how distributed systems are made. I understand how these systems are secured, and that's all you need to know. If you understand that and you look at our current system, you don't need proof that it was hacked and stolen at all to know that it was. You don't need it. Not required. Not required. No one should have confidence in what happened in 2020 because of the way the system was built. Um, Now, and we're seeing that more and more, right? We're seeing with Argentina, for example, no election machines. They got everything counted in one day. They got all the votes counted. Things looked a little more legit, right? Kyle Becker here is saying that America runs its elections worse than some third world countries. Of course they do. Who doesn't know that America is a shithole third world country now? Everybody knows, right? And we have to laugh at it. Now, American people can still win World War III, still amazing participants. And I think that part of the hope of what we have going forward is to break the American system and have Americans wake up to the deception they've been living under, right? I pray Americans get relief from the amount of military grade brainwashing just pumped into their heads for generations now. It's bad. It's as bad as North Korea, worse in some ways, right? As far as brainwashing, of course, I'd rather live in America than North Korea, even with the troubles that we have, right? What we've got in North Korea is a whole nother level, obviously. So here's what Kyle continues to say. It's not because the US can't have better elections. It's because the elites find it advantageous to keep the broken system in place. Argentina scrapped its voting machines in favor of paper ballots. It was able to count 25 to 30 million paper ballots in one day and reported the election results in a few hours. Just like magic, they were able to elect an anti-socialist president. Now, again, have you ever heard why we need these election machines? They always say it's to count. Well, we count votes for months in America, and that's what he says. In the United States, we have elections for months where everybody and their dog can send in absentee ballots. Voter IDs are not universally required, and electronic voting machines are run by private companies and do not always have paper ballots that can be audited. Even worse, Americans have to wait sometimes for days and in some cases weeks before knowing the results, even with the supposedly convenient voting machines. Numerous election integrity experts have shown that electronic voting machines, both touchscreen and ballot marking devices, have security flaws that can be exploited by hackers in a number of ways. Our elections are too important to be run like amateur hour crapshoots. It's time to put an end to private voting machine companies getting in between the voters and their democracy. All paper ballots, universal voter IDs, one election day. That should be the standard for America. It is the one we can all feel confident will give us fair and accurate results. And indeed, that whole trade-off is exactly what Bitcoiners understand better than anyone in the world. It's literally the crypto versus Bitcoin argument. It's literally the same thing. Literally the same thing. We are talking about cryptographic systems. We're talking about distributed databases. We're talking about attack vectors. We're talking about adversarial thinking. It's our field. It's literally what we do, right? So it's primordial. It is primitive to our entire worldview in Bitcoin. And therefore, going into 2024, we have a very important role. Again, not in misleading people. And did you see what Sidney Powell said and the Kraken and the thing and the stuff and SBF is a big donor. I love all that stuff, but you don't no one's going to pay attention. It doesn't matter, right? You have to mock these election systems. They are a joke. They don't work. They're the Ethereum of election systems, right? They don't work. So it's important for Bitcoiners. And I think, again, what's important here is the same way we laugh and mock crypto, we've got to laugh and mock these people who think democracy works. It doesn't, right? So we have an opportunity, and I think 2024 is going to be one of the funniest years we've ever seen. Really funny, right? I think there could be terrible things too, but I'm looking forward to the humor. All right, let me see if I got anything else. Lady ballers, security flaws. Yeah, that's about it. I did get the, this is just a breakdown of this is from Ground News. You guys ever follow Ground News? I'll give you this one little, last little thing that's in my notes that I found relevant. So Ground News is pretty good, right? They tried to tell you which news is being consumed by whom, and who's interested in a story and who's paying attention based on left, right, and middle. And they also will put headlines next to each other on the same story to compare what's going on. So here's what Ground News said about Elon's visit to Israel. Over 140 plus news sources have covered Elon Musk's visit to Israel so far. As with many stories about Musk, the visit has been framed differently through the headlines of news outlets across the political spectrum. Here are 4 headlines from left-leaning news sites. So Elon Musk visits Israel to meet top leaders as accusations of anti-Semitism on X grow. Elon Musk, that's from The Guardian. No, Associated Press. Elon Musk visits Israel after promoting anti-Semitic conspiracy on his X platform. And we got a few more. Elon Musk visits destroyed kibbutz and meets Netanyahu in wake of anti-Semitic post. That's in CNN. The Guardian, Elon Musk to meet Israeli president amid anti-Semitism accusations on X. And now here's 4 headlines from right-leaning news sources, right? Elon Musk tours kibbutz massacre on January 7th. Jarring to see the scene. Daily Caller, Elon Musk tours Israel with Netanyahu, visits community hit by Hamas after attack. Jarring to see the scene of the massacre in, I don't have the name of this one. So basically, left-leaning news outlets focus on the allegations of anti-Semitic content on X and Musk's own posts. In comparison, the right-leaning media outlets focus on Musk's visit to the kibbutz, emphasizing the graphic nature of the scene. So there you go. It's just a little comparison, right? Thought that was interesting. All right, what do we got here? Felipe CZ was captured and can't leave the US. Elon was captured and can't leave Israel. Only video in Tarek. They're watching it. Morning, gang. Wow, spot on. Grok now do PM. Grok actually means I see you as in Avatar. I didn't know that. Yeah, I thought it meant to understand. The Nazis weren't funny, so that checks out. Indeed, yeah. I have a longer time preference when selling my own art after seeing how much money flies around for garbage art that has no meaning. The floor for real art should be $1 million. Yeah, it could be. I agree with that, Tommy. All this art, all these are completely subjective, just as 90. Yeah, I mean, modern art, of course, was a CIA project, and most artists for money laundering. I mean, people have to understand that. Just as fiat fuckery is completely subjective, driven by social media mind Washington. I like that, mind Washington. Joe, what's up? Yeah, Americans don't even know that from 9/11 they've been living under Emergency Powers Act, also been attacked by BioWare over all COVID-19 isn't it? Yeah, that's what we saw. What's going on with Elon talking with Netanyahu? I find it so strange. Well, I mean, I don't. I mean, I don't think. I think that's exactly what he had to do, was go talk to Netanyahu, right? Having Netanyahu. Remember what we've been hearing about from Netanyahu, about from Mike Benz, for example, that Netanyahu is actually the enemy of the Biden administration because his energy desires are not exactly what they are in America. So he's not simply an American stooge, right? And again, he's on his own mission, I guess. But I don't know enough about what's going on in Israel. I really don't. I follow it, but I'm not at a level where I understand exactly why people hate Netanyahu and all of that. Wonder why Elon is so balanced, hasn't and will not travel to Gaza or West Bank. Wonder why. Yeah, I mean he's like profiling to be not an anti-Semite. I don't think he is an anti-Semite. I mean, again, I think what things come back to are, it's a bit of the Cernovich line, right? That one of the frustrating things going on right now for American lovers of Israel is that you can't even have as many opinions about what's going on in Israel as Israelis have. So I would say his distinction from being pro-Israel is within that sphere, right? I don't think he's anti-Israel at all, right? Like without being coaxed or whatever. I think he's just on that side of the debate. But I don't know. Good morning, Maxis. God bless you all. Vivek 2024, indeed. You'd say this is not Elon's. Yeah, I mean, no, I think it was him trying to So here's, I guess, the way to put it. Here's the way to put it. There aren't a lot of people in the world who have full freedom of speech. All right. Elon paid $40 billion to be one of the people to have freedom of speech. That's what it cost, right? He paid that much money to have freedom of speech. He had to buy the platform. So when all this stuff came out, he started having new restrictions again on his freedom of speech. And what I see this as, once you go to Netanyahu can vaccinate him from anti-Semitism critiques. With that vaccination in place, his freedom of speech is back to being full, where he can open up the guns rhetorically a bit on Netanyahu or Israel. I don't think so, veterans. I don't. I'm not a. Now I could be wrong, and I'm 100% mind reading here, right? So we've always got to acknowledge when we're mind reading, right, and see it in others. So I'm mind reading. But I mean, I don't think he's out trying to make a buck. Right? I don't think that. I think that once you reach his level of wealth, it's not about another billion, or like I got a contract for Starlink or anything like that. So there you go. Yeah, I was going to talk about Alberta's Sovereignty Act today. It's amazing. And it fits in line with what I've been saying about the reduction of federal powers. Of course, Canada and America have very similar distribution and sharing of powers. Alberta now basically telling Ottawa, the capital of Canada, go pound cement. Excellent news. Alberta shouldn't be much longer in Canada. It will, the minute the federal, my prediction for the future of Canada, United States, what's going on. I don't know if I'm right. I think I am. I think that as we shrink the federal government in the United States, as we shrink it to nothing with this SEC and all these judges, and we take away the fabricated USA Inc. out of the federal city of DC, and we basically just destroy the jurisdiction for what, not legally, but you don't have to do it legally. You just have to shrink and choke off money and choke off resources. Put it back to what it just was: Congress, Senate, and the Supreme Court and the executive branch, but a very limited version of it all. There'll be a kind of new deal for American states to relate to the federal government because of everything we see with Missouri versus Joe Biden, federal overreach, all of this stuff. States' rights are going to become they'll assume much more of their original character. And what'll happen is there'll be sort of a new deal that comes out of it. And I believe Alberta will opt in. And once Alberta, to get its oil out to market, right? So it'll be an opt-in commercial agreement for Alberta with some security and protection. And it will save them a bunch of money because Alberta subsidizes Canada, by the way. If you didn't know what a shit deal they got from Trudeau's father, you don't know what's going on in Canada, because that's what happened. Trudeau's father, here's how it works. Every state, and this is like the original green fuckery in the world, because this comes from the 70s. So what happens in Canada is that the GDP, right, the fake economic data of every state, every province, is tabulated, and the rich ones owe the poor ones, right? So the rich ones owe the poor ones. But Quebec is so smart. Well, I love Quebec. I mean, jerks, assholes, bad neighbors, fuckers, all of it. But I'm from here, and I just have to love it and accept it, and I do. And I'm 100% Quebec person, right? But I can admit. So what they did was, because they are just smarter than a lot of the other people in Canada. I mean, they're dumb in their own ways. They're very stupid in their own ways. But what they did was they got, in the 70s, oil and gas counts for the GDP of Alberta, but Quebec was able to get hydro because it's green or something excluded. So Quebec is one of the richest energy jurisdictions on Earth, on the planet, right? We have the most amazing electrical system ever, ever, right? But it doesn't count for our GDP. So we look poor. We look poor according to the thing at work, the way it works. So the rest of Canada has been subsidizing Quebec for 50 years now. They all have to pay billions a year to Quebec, which is rich as hell, right? So Quebec has all this money, and we don't, and we get to ignore our biggest industry, which is energy, which we sell to New York City and all the, we sell it to everyone. I'm like, so Quebec, it gets to ignore its number one resource, doesn't owe any money for it, and because it's subtracted from the calculation, looks poor. It looks poor. So Alberta has to pay every year billions of dollars. It's sad. It's so sad. And we won't even let them build a pipeline to get their products to market here. So it's not a good situation. So Alberta is going to leave. The only reason they haven't is because there's no port. There's no reason for them to stay with Canada. They're not going to get a better deal. So once they get a port, once Seattle or whatever gives them what they need, just take it out of the thing. And even the pipeline down to New Orleans, that was from Alberta, Keystone, right? That was straight down to Louisiana from Alberta. Even that, if that goes in for the next administration, Canada's done. So it's done. And then Alberta will join America, will get its land bridge to Alaska. Because once there's no more Ottawa, the territories cease to exist. They're just free land again. Because once the corporation of the federal government in Canada dissolves, which it will, and we also have a prescription to separate the country. We know how to do it. The Supreme Court gave us the blueprint. So we already created, the separatists demanded it in the 1990s. So they created the framework by which to break Canada apart legally. So we don't have to do any craziness. We know what happens when this triggers that and that triggers that. So it'll all get triggered once Alberta splits. The conditions are very clear. They need about 55% in a vote would be easy. They're not trying to negotiate a scam deal with The reason why Quebec can get scammed is because of money, right? The money thing was a big problem. How are they going to create their own money? Are they going to do whatever with the Canadian dollar? We didn't know about that stuff in the 90s. That one's not going to keep Quebec back anymore. Quebec is just going to buy Bitcoin with all of its energy, and it'll be fine too. So it's going to smash into pieces. And the Sovereignty Act is the start. They're not. It's over. It's done. Sorry, Canada. I love you, but dumb place. Do you know 3,000 people died in Israel from COVID? Yeah, I knew that. Yeah, I knew that. It was no good. All the writers that this is the same as well. I don't think it was Elon's strongest move. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. But again, he's got, I don't know about global PR reasons, but I do think he's trying to, Grok is stranger from a strange land. Yeah. I do think he's trying to maintain his 100% freedom of speech. And I think he rebought that with the visit, right? By having Netanyahu give him a benediction, basically. I don't mean to use a Catholic term, but he vaccinated him from anti-Semitism. So that's what he needed. He needed a vaccination. And he got one. He went to Israel, got vaccinated. So that's what I saw. But I could be wrong. All right, team. That's all I got for today. A bit of a funny news day, but we got memes. We're going to win. All right, everyone. Peace.